So this is an application, and it says the figure shows the position function of an airliner on an out and back trip from Seattle to Minneapolis, where S equals f of t is the number of ground miles from Seattle t hours after takeoff at 6 a.m. The plane returns to Seattle 8.5 hours later, so 8.5 hours after 6 a.m. at 2:30 p.m. So here's my graph, and here's what we know is it goes out to Seattle, it kind of sits still at the top, and then it flies back to, goes out to Minneapolis and then comes back to Seattle. It says calculate the average velocity of the airliner during the first 1.5 hours of the trip. So during the first 1.5 hours of the trip, I start at time 0, and I go to time 1.5, and I want the average velocity. So remember, average velocity is just like slope. So I'm going to find f of 1.5 minus f of 0 divided by 1.5 minus 0. And I'm going to go to 1.5 on my x-axis, and I'm going to look for the y value. It looks to be about 600. So this is 600 minus 0 divided by 1.5, because over here at 0 it's 0. So 600 divided by 1.5 gets me about 400 miles per hour. Okay, so part B says calculate the average velocity of the airliner between 1:30 and 2:30. So remember that we started at 6 a.m. So 1:30 is 7.5 hours, and 2:30 is 8.5 hours. So really this wants us to calculate the average velocity between 7.5 and 8.5. So I'm going to go to my graph again. I'm going to look at 7.5, and I'm about here at like 300, and then at 8.5 I'm back here at 0. So at 7.5 I was at 300, 8.5 at 0. So I'm going to do f of 8.5 minus f of 7.5 divided by 8.5 minus 7.5. So I get 0 minus 300 divided by 1, so negative 300. And notice that this is negative. That means that I'm going backwards, like I'm coming back towards Seattle. At what time or times is the velocity 0? Give a plausible explanation. So remember, the velocity towards us tells us our rate or our slope. So we're looking for places where the slope is 0. And it looks like up here at the top. So between like 2.8 and 5.2 hours. So between 2.8 and 5.2. So remember, we started at 6 a.m. So like 8:50 a.m. and 11 10 a.m. the velocity is 0. That's probably when they were landed and not moving in Minneapolis. Determine the velocity of the airliner at noon, t equals 6, and explain why the velocity is negative. Okay, so let's go up here and look back at our picture at noon at 6. So here's 6. Here's our graph. I need the slope. So I'm going to draw this tangent line to make a slope. To me, it looks like it goes down 400 and over 1 hour. About down 400 and over 1 hour. So I'm going to estimate like negative 400 miles per hour. Why is it negative? It's negative because it's coming backwards towards Minneapolis.